So in this video, we're going to be looking at some more examples of interpreting slope and y-intercept. For number 2, it says that the function below shows the cost of a hamburger, f of t, with different numbers of toppings, t. So f of t equals cost, t equals number of toppings. So this first question asks, what is the y-intercept and what does it mean? So remember with my slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, my b is my y-intercept. So that means that my b here is 1.9. So I'm going to say b equals 1.9, 0. Now I need to interpret what that means. And so that means for my y-intercept, that means that x is 0. So I have 0, 1.9. And so I need to determine what does both of those numbers mean. Well, 0, that is my t, and my t is the number of toppings. So at my y-intercept, that means there are no toppings. And then my y, or my f of t, represents the cost. And so that means when there are no toppings, the hamburger costs $1.90. Okay, now let's look at the slope. So what is the slope? Well, the slope here is 1.4. I'm going to go ahead and put that over 1, and I want to determine what that means. So remember, that's my change in y over my change in x. Well, my y, or f of t, is the cost. And my change in x, or change in t, is the toppings. So that means 140 for the cost per 1 topping. So that means that the cost of the hamburger increases by $1.40 for every 1 topping, or I can just say for every topping. So every time you add a topping, the price increases by $1.40. Okay, now this last one says, if Jody paid $3.30 for her hamburger, how many toppings were on Jody's burger? So I want to know the number of toppings. I know she paid $3.30. Well, the cost, that was f of t, so that means that f of t is equal to $3.30. And so that means I'm going to use this equation here, and I'm going to replace f of t with $3.30. And I'm going to solve for t to find the number of toppings. So I'll subtract 190 from both sides. And I get 1.4. And if I divide by 140, I get that t is equal to 1 topping. So Jody put 1 topping on her hamburger. Okay, let's try another one that's really similar. So the function below shows the cost to attend the fair, f of t, if you ride R rides. Oops, so that should be in R. So I have f of r is equal to cost, and r is equal to rides. So first I want to figure out what is the y-intercept and what does it mean. Well, I know my m is the one that's in front of my variable r, and so that means that my b is 5. And if I write that as an ordered pair, that is the ordered pair 0, 5. And so 0 means that I haven't ridden on any rides, and the cost is 5. And so really the y-intercept is always just your starting value. What's your starting cost? And so if I don't ride on any rides, it's going to cost $5. So that means really if I'm going to this fair, that the cost of entry is $5. You could also write this just as if I don't ride any rides, it costs $5. Okay, next I want to figure out what is the slope and what does it mean. And so here my slope is 175. And again, I'm going to go ahead and put that over 1. I know this is my change in y over my change in x. So my y, or my f of r, here is the cost. My change in x, or change in r, is the rides. And so that means that the cost to attend this fair increases by $1.75 for every ride I go on. So I want to say the cost increases by $1.75 for every ride. Okay, and the part C says if Patrick spent $19 at the fair, how many rides did Patrick ride? So here he spent $19, so that was the cost. So that means that f of r is equal to 19. And I want to find what that means that r equals. And so in my equation here, I want to replace f of r with 19. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve for r. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. And I get that 14 is equal to 1.75 r. And then if I divide both sides by 1.75, you should get that Patrick went on 8 rides. Okay, let's look at one last example. So this says that the graph below shows the number of newspapers delivered and total pay for Liana's newspaper delivery job. What does the slope of this graph represent? So my first step here is I need to figure out what the slope is. And so I'm going to go and find 2 points on this graph to see what my rise over run is. And so I see I have 1 point at 0, 0. And another point where it crosses in that grid line evenly is right here. And so I see I go up. This is really 5. Because I need to look at my increments here. And then I go to the right, 20. So I know that my slope is rise over run, so it's going to be 5 over 20, which simplifies out to be 1 over 4 when you divide top and bottom by 5. And so now I need to look at what does the y represent and what does the x represent. Well, my y-axis was total pay. In dollars, and my x was my newspapers delivered. So to interpret this, I can say that the total pay increases by $1 for every 4 newspapers delivered.